not asking for special treatment. We would never allow, if we did in-person voting, for people to come up to you right before you go in and try to convince you to change your mind and not vote and say, oh, this person's lying to you. We'd never allow that. We don't allow it at ballot drop boxes. The signature on those initiatives is as good as someone's vote. In that moment, they are casting a vote. And so they should have the same protection as in that process as we give other aspects of the democratic process. So the bill's sponsor, Representative Greg Cheney, was nice enough to join us to talk about his bill. Representative Cheney, welcome to Undivided.
Great, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
I think this is the first time we've had you on, is it?
It is. It is.
How dare we? How dare we? Because now here you are saving the day with this great bill. So this is an issue I'm passionate about. I've talked about it quite a bit. I think it makes sense to bring parity to how we treat and protect signature gatherers with other aspects of the democratic process. But how did you get to this iteration of the bill? So what did you use as a guide to sort of craft what those protections would look like?
Sure. We wanted to make sure that we protected the First Amendment rights of both signature gatherers and those who are opposed. They still have First Amendment rights as well. But we wanted to make sure that there was some breathing space between those two groups. I think you're probably aware, and your listeners are, of an incident at a Costco where that wasn't the case. Someone who was very upset with the initiative gatherers came and tried to disrupt, and I'm sure that's happened countless times around the state. And so we kind of crafted it with that, again, those First Amendment. I'm a big pro First Amendment supporter. I think that everybody has the right to speech. I should add peaceable speech. I think that's an important component. But we wanted to make sure that that everybody could have the chance to be in a proximity, but not in a physically dangerous way, or actually pushing and shoving. And so that's kind of how we drafted the bill, with enough of a space in between that it could accommodate both pro and con groups.
Yeah, and there's also this, and I asked Senator Wilson about his bill in regard to the number 25 feet. How do you land on that?
Yeah, I think 25 feet is fine. I think we could go from 25 feet to 100 feet. I don't have a particular distance in mind, as much as I'm wedded to the concept of a breathing space before people are pushing and shoving. So whether or not it's 25 feet, 100 feet, that isn't my primary concern. Except I want to make sure that if folks are out there doing these First Amendment protected activities, that both groups, whether or not I agree with one group or not, they equally have a right to the First Amendment. And I think it's something that we have to continue as Republicans and conservatives who believe in a Bill of Rights. We need to highlight that everyone has a voice and they have a right, both sides, to share their opinion. And so that this bill tries to balance that opinion speech, while making sure that it doesn't come to physical blows.
Well, and it's not so much about physical blows, though, is it? Because there's laws against that. I mean, you can't walk up to a signature gatherer and punch him in the face. I mean, to me, from my personal experience, what the 25-foot buffer does is it prevents that person who's trying to stop you before you get to the table and convince you not to sign the bill. Physically, in really getting in the way physically, not necessarily physical assault. It also, we had one experience when I was collecting signatures for a referendum over the summer where you've got people coming in to sign it and they're met at the door with a line of people holding signs calling them, right-wing, fascist, anti-transgender, which is intimidating.
Sure.
So I guess, on the speech front of all of this, you also have a section in there that has to do with if somebody's got a bullhorn at 25 feet yelling at you.
Yeah.
And can you explain what that would do?
Yeah, I think we're actually going to move a little bit of that. There's an amendment that's likely to come that's going to move kind of that bullhorn activity out a little bit further, because obviously that could be equally disruptive if someone has massive speakers or bullhorns that are constantly yelling from 25 feet away. So that's one of the amendments we're looking at. I think it's a good amendment. Because that is equally disruptive, as would be the physical interference, obviously, is that audio visual disruption that is directly for the purpose of convoluting or denying the ability of the initiative signature gatherers.
Yeah, and I wonder, I've heard from the Retail Association, they've been really frustrated with the initiative process to a certain
Sure.
extent. I mean, I think they probably behind the scenes support a lot of these things, but there's been some, as you mentioned, the Costco incident. There's been some, not come to blows, but some disruptions where these signature gatherings have taken place. They feel like it's interfering with their customers. Do you think this will help that by putting a little buffer between the two sides?
I hope so. I mean, obviously, we want our stores to be safe places of commerce. I think we need to make sure that we don't go so far one direction or another, either with the protesters or the signature gatherers, that stores no longer want to provide that venue. Because that's one of the things that I am concerned about is if groups pro and con around signature gathering are coming in too close proximity, well, the store can always say, listen, this is a trespass issue at this point. None of you are invited to our property. Get lost. And then you're back to kind of trying to gather at city parks or where are places that may not be so convenient for a mom who happens to be taking her kids grocery shopping, who really believes in parental rights, or that would be an example of where I think you could lose some of that natural gathering by forcing it off into public property areas.
Yeah, isn't it funny we have to legislate people to be adults and to be
Right.
respectful? It's like, I can't believe we need these laws, but here we are.
Yeah.
This should be a no-brainer. I fail to see the controversy in it if we really care about protecting our democracy, making sure people can vote free of fear and intimidation. However, as you know, politics comes into an awful lot of stuff these days. We've heard the Speaker of the House is not a particular fan of the initiative process. She said she's saddened by what it's become. So you obviously got the chair of the committee to give it a hearing. Do you anticipate having any pushback from the majority party?
I haven't heard any pushback yet. I actually think that most folks who are concerned about this issue are probably in agreement on it, that this is kind of a common sense measure to just kind of, make sure everybody has a free speech right, but let's give a little bit of breathing room between the two groups. I would say, I have to commend you a hearing yesterday. There was a bill that was heard in state government committee about the right to vote, which the Democrats caucus is apparently pushing a bill that wants to give murderers, I kid you not, murderers, the right to vote while they're in prison, and their right to not only vote, but also to serve on a jury panel. It was a bizarre dystopian hearing yesterday that I would commend to you and your listeners to listen to, because it was a very bizarre hearing about allowing people currently in prison for up to and including murder, the right to vote and the right to sit on juries. Again, a dystopian future, perhaps.
Had not heard that one. I'm very surprised that went under the radar for me. So we'll be looking into that. Yeah. I thought that in 2024, given everything going on, maybe we wouldn't have the real crazy stuff. I've been wrong though, so we'll see how far some of that stuff gets. Well, Representative Cheney, we appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you bringing this forth. It just, we don't allow people to yell at you while you're going to drop off your ballot. Let's not do it when you try to sign your name to paper for an initiative. So we'll see where this goes, but thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.